Emily had always been the quiet one in her family. She lived in the small town of Greenfield with her mother, Margaret, and her brother, Daniel. Her father, Richard, had passed away a few months earlier, leaving a silence in the house that was too heavy for Emily to carry. She tried to fill it with kindness, cooking, cleaning, and making sure her mother never felt lonely. But no matter how much she tried, it always seemed Daniel's presence was valued more. From childhood, Margaret made it clear that Daniel was her pride. He was the first son, the one she believed carried the family name with honor. Whenever Emily wanted to share her dreams, her mother dismissed them. "Don't worry about all that," Margaret would say. "Your brother will take care of things. You just focus on behaving yourself." Emily swallowed those words each time, even though they cut deep. The real trouble began when lawyers came to discuss Richard's inheritance. He had left behind a spacious family house, a piece of farmland, and a decent amount of savings. The lawyer explained, by law, all of Richard's children have equal rights to his property. Emily's eyes widened with relief. At least her father had seen her as worthy. But Margaret's face grew tight. She glanced at Daniel, and in that silent exchange, Emily noticed something unsettling, something she couldn't yet name. After the lawyer left, Margaret said calmly, "Emily, don't worry about all this property business. Daniel will handle it. It's better if everything is in his name so things don't get complicated." Emily frowned. "But Mother," the lawyer said, "we all have equal rights. Why should Daniel take everything?" Margaret's tone hardened. "Don't start arguing with me. You're a woman. You'll marry one day, and your husband will provide for you. Daniel is the one who should keep the house." Emily's heart sank. For the first time, she realized her mother didn't see her as equal. But she stayed silent, not wanting to spark a quarrel in the middle of her grief. Little did she know that silence would cost her everything. Emily began noticing strange things. Whenever she came home late from work, she would hear Margaret and Daniel whispering in the living room. Their voices would drop the moment she walked in. Once, she overheard Daniel saying, "She doesn't need to know everything. The less she knows, the better." Margaret nodded in silence, and when Emily asked what they were discussing, her mother snapped, "It's family matters you don't need to worry about." Emily's suspicions grew, but she didn't want to believe her own mother could keep secrets from her. Weeks later, a letter arrived from the lawyer's office, but Emily never saw it. Margaret quietly hid it away in her drawer. The letter confirmed that Richard's estate was to be divided equally between Daniel and Emily. Instead, Margaret told Emily, "The lawyer said the documents will take time. For now, just let Daniel handle things." Daniel smirked whenever Emily asked questions. "Don't stress yourself, Emily. You're not cut out for property matters. Leave it to me." His words were sharp, but what hurt Emily most was Margaret's silence. One Saturday morning, Emily decided to tidy her mother's room. As she opened the drawer, she found the hidden letter. Her hands trembled as she read the words, "The estate is to be shared equally between Daniel Clark and Emily Clark." Emily confronted her mother that evening. "Mother, why did you hide this letter from me?" Margaret stiffened. "Because you don't need to know everything. Daniel is in charge, and that's final." Emily's voice shook. "But Father wanted me to have a share too. Why are you and Daniel trying to push me out?" Margaret looked her in the eye and said coldly, "Because Daniel deserves it more than you." Those words broke Emily's heart. Daniel was not satisfied with half the inheritance. He wanted everything. With Margaret's knowledge, he forged Emily's signature on property transfer documents. The house and farmland were quietly moved into his name. Emily only realized something was wrong when the neighbors started congratulating Daniel. One even said, "Your brother is lucky to own the whole property now." Emily froze. "The whole property? What about me?" The neighbor looked confused. "Didn't you sign the papers?" That night, Emily confronted Daniel. He laughed mockingly. Yes, everything is mine now. The house, the land, the savings. You should thank me for letting you stay under this roof at all. Emily turned to her mother, hoping she would correct Daniel. But Margaret stood behind him, her arms folded. Daniel is right, Margaret said. This house belongs to him now. Stop creating trouble. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. Mother, how could you do this to me? I'm your daughter too. But Margaret's face showed no mercy. One evening, Emily returned home to find her belongings packed in boxes outside the house. Daniel stood at the door. You don't live here anymore, he said smugly. Emily gasped. You can't throw me out of my father's house. Daniel shoved her box toward her. It's not your father's house anymore. It's mine. Emily looked at her mother through the window, hoping for support. But Margaret turned away. With nowhere to go, Emily carried her boxes into the cold night. Emily wandered the streets until her friend Sarah found her crying by the roadside. Sarah took her in. Emily, you can't let them get away with this, Sarah said firmly. You have rights. That house is yours too. Emily shook her head. How do I fight my own mother and brother? I have no money, no lawyer, nothing. Sarah gripped her hand. Then start from here. I'll help you, but you must be strong. Encouraged by Sarah, Emily returned to the lawyer's office. The lawyer was shocked when she explained what had happened. You never signed any documents, he asked. Never, Emily said. The lawyer frowned. Then someone forged your signature. This is a crime. Emily's heart raced. For the first time, she felt a small flame of hope. Emily returned to the house with the lawyer. When Daniel saw them, he sneered. Why are you back? The lawyer held up the documents. Daniel, these papers have a forged signature. That's a serious offense. We'll be taking this to court. Margaret's face went pale. She tried to defend Daniel. It was for the good of the family. But Emily cut her off. No, Mother. It was for the good of Daniel. Not me. Not Father's wishes. The case was filed. In court, Daniel denied everything, but the handwriting expert confirmed the signature was forged. Emily stood bravely as she gave her testimony. My father wanted fairness, but my own mother and brother stole from me. I may be a woman, but I deserve my right. Margaret was called to testify. Under pressure, she admitted she knew Daniel had forged the papers. Gasps filled the courtroom. Emily felt a tear slide down her cheek, not of sadness, but of vindication. The judge ruled in Emily's favor. The property was restored equally between her and Daniel. Daniel was fined heavily for forgery, and Margaret's reputation in the town was ruined. As they left the court, Daniel hissed, "This isn't over." But Emily looked him in the eye and said, "Yes, it is. Because truth always wins." Emily returned to the family house, this time with her head held high. She renovated part of it, while Daniel sulked in silence. Margaret avoided her, ashamed of her actions. Sarah hugged Emily tightly. You did it. You stood up for yourself. Emily smiled faintly. It wasn't easy, but I couldn't let them take my father's wishes away. Though the betrayal had cut her deeply, Emily found strength in her pain. She started a small business with her share of the savings and rebuilt her life slowly. Her relationship with Margaret and Daniel was never the same, but Emily no longer lived in their shadows. She had found her voice, her courage, and her dignity. One evening, standing in the garden her father once loved, Emily whispered, "Father, I kept your wish, and I kept my worth." And with that, she finally let the wound begin to heal. After the court ruling, the house no longer felt the same. Margaret barely spoke to Emily, and Daniel kept slamming doors whenever she was around. The silence was heavy, almost poisonous. One evening, Emily tried to break it. "Mother, we can still live peacefully. There's no need for hatred." But Margaret's reply was sharp. "You embarrassed us in court. You've destroyed your own family. Don't expect kindness from me again." Emily swallowed her tears and walked away. Daniel couldn't accept defeat. He began spreading lies around Greenfield. To the neighbors, he whispered that Emily was greedy, that she had forced her mother into shame just for money. Some people believed him. At the market, one woman muttered loudly as Emily passed, "That's the girl who dragged her own family to court." Imagine! Emily's cheeks burned, but she walked on. Sarah encouraged her, "Don't let gossip bury you. Truth always stands taller than lies." Using part of her savings, Emily opened a small grocery shop near the market. At first, customers hesitated, influenced by Daniel's rumors. But Emily treated each person with kindness, always smiling and offering fair prices. Slowly, people began to trust her again. One old man said warmly, "You remind me of your father. Honest and hard-working. Don't let bitterness change you." Emily's eyes filled with tears. Those words gave her strength. But Daniel wasn't done. Furious at Emily's progress, he convinced Margaret to pressure her again. One night, Margaret confronted Emily in the kitchen. "Sell your share of the house to Daniel," she demanded. "Take the money and leave. You don't belong here." Emily stared at her mother in disbelief. "You'd rather see me homeless than let me live in peace?" Margaret's eyes hardened. "Daniel is my son. I'll always protect him." Emily realized then that her mother's love had conditions. Daniel escalated further. He brought his friends into the house, drinking and making noise late at night to drive Emily away. When she complained, he laughed. "What are you going to do? Run to the court again?" Emily clenched her fists. "If I must, I will. But I won't be bullied out of what belongs to me." Margaret watched silently, choosing Daniel's side once more. Sarah remained Emily's rock. She visited the shop daily, helping her keep records. "Don't let their wickedness stop you," she said. "Your strength is your calmness." One day, Sarah introduced Emily to her cousin, Thomas, a kind young man who worked at the town council. He admired Emily's courage. "Most people would have given up," he told her. "But you fought for your place. That shows character." For the first time in months, Emily felt a spark of hope in her heart. As time passed, Margaret's health began to fail. She grew weaker, coughing often and losing weight. Strangely, it was Emily, not Daniel, who took care of her. She bought medicine, cooked, and sat by her bedside. One night, Margaret whispered, "Why are you helping me after all I did to you?" Emily sighed softly. "Because you're my mother. Betrayal doesn't erase that." Tears filled Margaret's eyes, but she said nothing more. Daniel's reckless lifestyle caught up with him. He fell into debt after gambling away most of his money. One evening, angry men stormed the house, demanding repayment. Daniel panicked and hid, while Emily faced them calmly. She explained the situation and promised to speak to the council about finding a solution. The men, seeing her honesty, backed down temporarily. Later, Emily confronted Daniel. "Your greed will destroy you if you don't change." But Daniel only snarled, "Stay out of my business." Margaret, now bedridden, began to see the truth. She watched as Emily cared for her without complaint while Daniel disappeared for days, leaving her alone. One night, Margaret wept softly. "Emily, I wronged you. I chose Daniel over you, but he has abandoned me. You are the one who stayed." Emily held her hand. "It's never too late to make things right, Mother." For the first time, Margaret whispered the words Emily had longed to hear, "I'm sorry." By spring, Emily's shop was thriving. People admired her resilience, and her reputation in Greenfield was restored. Sarah and Thomas stood by her, and even Margaret, though weak, began defending her daughter when neighbors gossiped. As Emily stood outside her shop one morning, she thought of her father's words in the will, his wish for fairness. She had endured betrayal, lies, and rejection, but she had survived. Looking up at the sunrise, Emily whispered, "I am stronger than what they tried to do to me." And in that moment, she knew her story was no longer one of conspiracy and betrayal. It was one of survival and strength. Daniel's debts grew worse. Creditors began following him around town, and his once proud name became a symbol of disgrace. The same neighbors who once admired him now whispered, "That boy ruined himself with greed." One night, Daniel stormed into Emily's shop. "Lend me money, Emily. You have enough. You owe me after what you did." Emily looked at him firmly. "What I did? Daniel, I only took back what was mine. I will not pay for your recklessness." Daniel's fists tightened, but the fire in Emily's eyes made him back down. Margaret, watching her son fall apart, begged Emily, "Help your brother. He's drowning." Emily sighed. "Mother, I have forgiven you both, but I can't fix him. He must face the consequences of his actions." Margaret's tears flowed. "I thought protecting him meant loving him. But I see now, it ruined him." For the first time, Margaret realized her blind favoritism had destroyed her son's character. Meanwhile, Thomas continued visiting Emily. His calm nature and quiet encouragement warmed her heart. One evening, as they closed the shop together, he said softly, "Emily, I admire how you rise each time life tries to bury you. That strength is rare." Emily blushed, unused to such kindness. She had lived in betrayal so long that genuine care felt foreign. But slowly, she began to trust again. One afternoon, Daniel was dragged into the town square by angry creditors. They demanded repayment he could not give. Humiliated, Daniel shouted at the crowd, "This is all Emily's fault. She took everything from me." But the townspeople no longer believed his lies. One man spat on the ground. "No, Daniel. Your greed did this. Your sister worked hard while you wasted everything." Daniel fell to his knees, broken. Margaret's illness worsened. On her deathbed, she called Emily close. Her voice was weak but sincere. "Emily, forgive me. I was blind. I thought loving Daniel more would keep this family strong, but it destroyed us. You were the true child of honor." Tears streamed down Emily's face as she held her mother's hand. "I forgave you long ago, Mother. Rest in peace." Margaret smiled faintly and whispered, "Take care of your future, my daughter," before closing her eyes forever. At Margaret's funeral, Daniel stood apart, his face hollow. Few people comforted him. After the service, he approached Emily. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he admitted. "I lost everything, my money, my name, even Mother's trust. All because of envy." Emily's eyes softened. "Daniel, you destroyed yourself, but I hope one day you rebuild. I will not carry hatred for you." Daniel lowered his head, ashamed. Life slowly became peaceful. Emily expanded her shop into a larger business, employing young people in Greenfield. Her kindness made her loved and respected. One evening, Thomas asked her during a walk, "Emily, after everything, do you still believe in family?" She smiled softly. "Family is not just blood, Thomas. It's the people who stand by you, the ones who lift you when you fall. That's what you've been to me." His eyes shone, and Emily realized she had found a new kind of family. Months later, Thomas formally asked for Emily's hand in marriage. At first, Emily hesitated, afraid of being betrayed again. But Thomas reassured her, "I will never conspire against you. My vow is to walk beside you, not above you." Emily's heart finally healed enough to say yes. The town celebrated, and people whispered, "After all her suffering, Emily has found joy." Daniel, humbled by poverty, began working as a laborer on the farmland that once belonged to both of them. Though his pride was gone, he slowly learned the value of hard work. Sometimes, he came to Emily's shop quietly, helping without asking for payment. "One day," he said softly, "you saved me when I didn't deserve it. Maybe one day, I'll be worthy of being your brother again." Emily smiled. "The door will always be open when you're ready." Years later, Emily stood in the garden of her father's house, now filled with flowers she had planted herself. Sarah's laughter echoed nearby, and Thomas held her hand gently. Children played on the farmland, bringing life back to the place that once carried only sorrow. Emily closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She had survived betrayal, conspiracy, and rejection. She had carried pain but transformed it into strength. Looking up at the evening sky, she whispered, "Father, I kept the truth. I kept my worth. And I am finally free." The house that once echoed with whispers of betrayal now bloomed with peace, love, and laughter.